see the world from a totally different perspective?
Ready for provocative conversation,
intriguing stories,
and inspiration?
Then don't touch that dial.
Welcome
to Talk with Francesca.
She'll give you something to talk about all week long.
Now, here's Francesca.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Talk with Francesca. I'm Francesca, your host, and I am certain by the end of this hour, you're going to know a little bit more than you do now, so don't touch that dial. If you're new to the show, I'm going to go over a few things that you might want to know. To reach me, you can shoot me an email at info@talkwithfrancesca.com. And if you miss part of the show, as always, you can hop on over to my iTunes page where you can also listen to hundreds of other episodes of Talk with Francesca. This show is sponsored by Terra Mia Ristorante in the North End. When you will only accept the absolute best in Italian food, great service, and an intimate setting, Terra Mia is your go-to spot. I know because it also happens to be my favorite. And there's parking. And don't forget to tell them that I sent you. Another fabulous restaurant on the North Shore, which is actually owned by the same woman, Carla Gomez, is Antico Forno. It is just, it is an absolute to die for restaurant. So both of them have great food. So mosey on over there this weekend. All right. Do you ever feel like you'll never find the one? You know what I mean by the one. Are you sick of failed relationships? Do you feel like you are the only single woman left on the planet? Are you fed up with comments from friends and family hinting that you're getting old and you need to settle down before it's too late? That sort of reminds me of that movie. What was that movie, My Cousin Vinny, when she was stomping her feet and saying, my biological clock is ticking, and it's like stomp, stomp, stomp. Anyway, at 36 years old, that is exactly how Louisa Pateman felt. For years, she tried to fulfill her life plan. That's exactly what she had, was a life plan. The one that's set by society. Find your soulmate, get married, have babies. But after a dozen failed relationships and a biological clock that was about to expire, she decided to embark on a journey to become a single mother by choice. She has written a memoir, Single Again, and Again. All right. So I am really looking forward to hearing your story, Louisa. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Francesca. It's lovely to be here.
And I know that it's probably some ungodly hour that you're calling from Australia. So thank you. I hope that it doesn't mess up your day completely. Anyways, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. I am actually a civil engineer. I'm I guess what you'd call a career woman. I've spent 25 years, moving around the world and having a fantastic career as an engineer and a project manager. I've worked on different major events even. And look, I love travel. I've done lots of travelling. I just didn't find the one. So, I've had a great life. I just didn't meet my soulmate.
Did you not find your soulmate because, tell me why. Why do you think that you didn't?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I have asked myself this many times. And look, I feel that I met some wonderful guys. I felt that the relationships I certainly had in my 20s, they were genuine, authentic relationships, and I guess at the time my intentions were in the right place. But for whatever reason, their intentions weren't. And whether that was they wanted to go and experience other women, they were too young, or they just felt that I wasn't what they were looking for in terms of a wife, I found myself in situations where I just wasn't getting someone who wanted to spend the rest of my life with me. And so I found myself in a series of relationships. And look, I questioned myself many times in my 20s why I didn't find the one. And like even now, I just think that I'm blessed in hindsight that I ended up with quite a few different relationships, which actually gave me a trajectory to different life experiences. And this is where I end up now.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes, there are people who just absolutely refuse to settle. And, it sort of reminds me a bit. I have for the past 8 or 9 months, I had been looking for a new home. I had sold my home, and, I didn't think it would be so such a daunting experience. And, some of my friends were scratching their head and saying, like, well, you can't have it all. And I insisted that I could. Well, I insisted that I could, and I was refusing to give that up. And voila, one day, it showed up. And, but sometimes it can take a long time. And, some people are just really, I'm not saying everybody, but lots of people are willing to settle. And it isn't so easy to, find that right relationship. It really isn't. I mean, obviously, if it were, then 50% or more of marriages would be failing, right? Yes. So, but anyway.
Exactly.
Right? So you say that becoming a single mother by choice was the best decision of your life. So what led you to become, other than what you've just told us, what led you to say, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own? Right.
Look, it was a very difficult decision. And I spent 20 years chasing my life plan. As you mentioned before, it was set by society and by my family and by media, where every girl always gets the guy at the end of a Hollywood movie. And you see it everywhere. And so in my head, I had equated success with my happily ever after, which was defined by fairy tales. So find a man, settle down, get married and have kids. And so I had that in my life plan. And as I mentioned before, I didn't find the one. And look, I tried really, really hard. And I've done a lot of reflection and I've done a lot of soul searching, and I don't believe it was anything that I did wrong per se. It just wasn't meant to be. And so I found myself single a lot in my 20s and my 30s. So I'd have these periods of time where I'd have these relationships, and they may have lasted anywhere from 2 months to 2 years, I guess, or a bit longer. But I always found myself single in these periods of time. And when I was single, it was very difficult, more so in my 30s. So when all my friends around me started getting married and having children, I found it very difficult. And it was like being the third wheel. And it was like I had this disease. When I got into my 30s, my mid-30s especially, I found it very difficult to find a relationship as I got older into my 30s. And I guess I had a criteria, as you mentioned before, about your property. And I had a criteria and I had a bar. And in my 20s, I stuck with that. And I am happy to say that the relationships I had, even though they didn't last forever, they were not. Most of them were nice memories. There was a couple in there that were a bit.
There's always a couple of those.
Most of them were nice guys. Yeah. And so I feel I was happy in my 20s. So in believing that I was still going to find the one, and that I could actually have this bar and this list of criteria. But then when I got into my 30s and all of my friends around me were starting to get married and have children, I felt like I had, I was out of the race. I kept getting sent back to go. It's like on a Monopoly board where it's like, oh my goodness, I'm back at go again. I'm back at the starting line again. And I just kept falling more and more behind. And I was starting to get anxious. But I still wasn't willing to give up my life plan. So I had my life plan, which basically involved finding the love of your life, or love of my life, and you're spending time getting to know them, get engaged, and get married and have children. And I wanted all of this by the time I was 30. So when I was young, I perceived 30 as being old, and I don't think that now. But I believed 30 was old, and so I had my life planned where I would have my first child by the time I was 30. And then as I was getting older and older, I kept pushing back my life plan and kept pushing it back and reconciling in my head, oh, it's okay, I'll just push back the kids, but I still want to find the one. I still want to get married to the right person and settle down and live happily ever after. And then as I got to my 30s, I had failed my life plan. And so I then struggled more and more, and seeing my friends more and more getting married, I guess a little bit of desperation set in. And so my criteria started to lower, and I can look back.
That's always a bad. That's always a bad thing.
Yes, I know, and I reminisce now with some women who are in their same age as me, but are single. And we reminisce about our 30s for those of us that were single. At the time when I was in my 30s, I felt like I was the only one. But now that I'm older and I have different circles of friends and I've been exposed to different walks of life, I've found that there's actually quite a lot of women out there who went through what I went through. I just didn't know it at the time. And to look at, as I was going through my 30s, my bar was getting lower and lower. And so the type of men that I was dating was getting, I guess the quality was deteriorating, you could say. And but I still wasn't willing to give up my life plan. I still wasn't willing to give up this happily ever after notion. And then I got into my mid-30s, and it was getting worse. And I would meet men, and they would ask my age. And as soon as I said that and that I wanted children, it was like I may as well not have existed. They just didn't see me as an option. It was like, that's too much pressure. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of just got overlooked constantly as I got older into my 30s. And so I decided that I wanted to buy some time. So I was in my mid-30s. I was 36, and I decided, okay, all right, I'm not willing to give up meeting the one. I just need more time. My biological clock had kicked in by that stage, which happened around about 32. And I started to actually realise that I didn't have forever. I didn't have, I had basically a time bomb that was ticking that mm-hmm. was potentially going to stop me from getting my complete happily ever after. But I still wasn't willing to give up finding the one. And so I'd come up with this plan. I thought, it's ingenious. I'm going to go and freeze my eggs. And so I went through and I guess investigated the prospect of freezing my eggs at the time. It was 2010. And I do acknowledge that there has been some advances in technology nowadays. But in 2010, my reality was that freezing my eggs was only a 7% chance of having that being a live birth. And I'm an engineer, so I know maths very well. Mm-hmm, and mm-hmm. So I sat there in the clinic and I just started doing the maths in my head. And I just thought, oh, my goodness, 7%. That means I'm going to have potentially 14 miscarriages before I have a live birth, which means it could be 5 years before I actually produce a baby. And I haven't even found the one yet. And I was sitting there at 36. And it really scared me. It really scared me. And
your mind must be, how do you sleep at night? Your mind going, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? We do need to take a short break. When we come back, let's talk more about your plan. Listeners, stay with us here.
This is life, don't listen.
I'm Francesca Luca, and you're listening to Talk with Francesca on 95.9 WATD.
Noticing fine lines and wrinkles? Skin laxity or stubborn areas of fat that just won't budge despite your efforts? How about increased anxiety and fatigue? What is your body trying to tell you? With the power of Powell, you'll be able to get to the root of the aging process and back to the best version of you. Jennifer Powell offers Botox, Sculptra, skin resurfacing treatments, volume restoration, laser hair removal, body contouring, skin tightening, nutrient IV hydration, and more. Visit her new location at 222 Webster Street in Hanover, just off Route 3. Call 781-421-6544 or visit jlprn.com today to schedule your consultation. Jennifer and her team of specialists look forward to helping you understand your beauty from within.
Located in Boston's North End holds one of our best-kept secrets, Antico Forno, ranked number 9 of the top 10 Italian restaurants around the world within the category of being one of the most authentic. With a welcoming family feel, it's hard to argue the experience you have when enjoying dinner at Antico Forno. Best known for their brick oven pizza, their world-class traditional cuisine does not fall far behind. Come enjoy dinner at Antico Forno and feel like part of the family. Open daily from 11:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. Call us today at 617-723-6733 or visit us at anticofornoboston.com.
Your pets are family. Take your dog to the Dog's Den in Pembroke. Your furry friend will go from smelling crummy to yummy because Leah at the Dog's Den really cares. Whatever your pet's needs are, from dematting to extra scissoring, the Dog's Den in Pembroke has your furry friends covered. So call the Dog's Den today at 781-826-7008 or visit thedogsdengrooming.com.
So you finally found your dream home. Now the scary part, the dreaded home inspection. But it doesn't have to be scary. With Dale Weaver, owner of Dreamweaver Inspections, Dale has been inspecting homes since 2002. With extensive experience across all types and phases of construction, Dale provides residential and commercial home inspections. He is thorough, honest, and treats the home inspection as if it was a home he was buying. I know because I used him, and he really goes that extra mile. Dale gave me an unbiased view of my new home so that I had all the facts I needed to make a sound, informed decision. He really took time to explain everything to me in a way that was easy to understand. I would absolutely recommend him. You won't be disappointed. Visit him today at dreamweaverinspections.com. Now a deep breath and relax because you're in great hands.
This is life, don't miss it.
Hey, this is James Woods, and you are listening to Talk with Francesca.
On 95.9 WATD. All right, we are back, and I am speaking with Louisa Pateman, and she has written a book, Single Again, and Again. Is that the name of your book? Did I mess that up? No, I didn't. Single Again, and
Oh,
Again.
you may have missed one. Yeah.
One of those agains. I left out one again.
And again.
Okay. All right. So we know, welcome back. So we know that you had a refusal to give up your life plan. Boy, those voices in your head, killer, huh? But anyways, yeah. So tell us more.
Yeah, so look, as I mentioned, I decided that freezing my eggs would be an option, and only to find out that back in 2010 that wasn't an insurance plan. And I came out of the fertility clinic very defeated, and yet I still wasn't willing to give up my life plan. And it was actually the fertility specialist, the gynecologist, that had said to me, why don't I consider using a donor? And it was the first time someone had actually suggested an option that didn't involve my soulmate. And I was really taken aback. And I thought, I came in here to freeze my eggs so that I can use those with my soulmate. I didn't come in here to have some stranger's baby. And so that was a very difficult thing to take away. And I walked out of there thinking, okay, all right, that's not an option. I still, in my head, was not willing to give up this life plan and the happily ever after. It was just so deeply embedded. And then I decided at that point in time, I had never done internet dating. It had always been by chance that I had met someone. And so I decided, I walked out of there and basically set up my eHarmony profile that night. And I'm like, okay, desperate times call for desperate measures. I need to get out there and shop for a man. And at that point in time, I had focused on serendipity and believing that the universe would deliver me the right one. And by this stage,
I love that attitude. That's a beautiful attitude.
And by this stage, the universe hadn't delivered, and that was the problem. And so frustrated with the universe, I went home and I set up my profile. And I thought, okay, that's it. I have to do internet dating. I have to shop for a man. And so I proceeded to do that. And I was quite surprised at how many, how many options became available as part of that. But they weren't all genuine options, I found. And I guess that's the problem with too many choices. And I'm sure that the young people of today, or even anyone today that's using the internet dating, it's a struggle. But I ended up choosing this one, and I call him Towel Guy in the book for a number of reasons. But I started dating this towel guy who would never, in my wildest dreams, have actually fitted my list, fitted my criteria in my 20s or even my early 30s. And so I'd lowered my bar so low because I was just so desperate to find someone because I had this biological clock. And the gynecologist had pulled out this graph to show me that my fertility was about to fall off a cliff. And so So I clung to hope with this towel guy, and he ended up being the worst relationship. It was so bad, so bad. And that's why I call him towel guy, because I can't really, it was a disaster.
It's never a good idea to settle, ever.
Oh, and it really drove home for me that I was settling. And, I was with him for about 4 months, and we travelled over to South Africa together, and that was really what got me across the line, because I love travelling so much. He was like, "Yeah, I'm willing to travel with you." And I thought, "Oh, surely there's got to be some good in this person if he's willing to travel. One of my highest values is travelling." But it just didn't work. He was a nightmare. And so after 4 months of pushing and trying to convince myself that I could spend the rest of my life with this disastrous man, I realised that was it. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to stop, and I had to really start to think about what the gynecologist had said, and that maybe I should actually think about becoming a single mother.
And so you did.
So I did, and look, it was not an easy thing, and I had to have that last disastrous relationship to prove to me that there was actually no good men left. Well, in my reality.
Let me just ask you. So have you so now I know that you have a child, but now have you decided to give up finding?
No, definitely not.
Okay,
no, definitely not.
Good.
And
because
I get this question I get this question a lot. I think having a child didn't stop me from wanting to find someone.
Right.
But what it did is it took away the pressure.
Yes.
So I no longer had that time pressure, the biological clock time pressure. And because I had then changed my identity and I was now a mother, I was calm, right? So I was just a lot calmer. And so I was able to then reinstate my criteria. And I was able to then not have that time pressure of a biological clock and the status of being a single woman who is childless in my late 30s, where you kind of get labelled and get categorised and put into a box. And so I just became this new, I guess, categorisation, and I had a new identity. And yes, I certainly, and even now, if someone crosses my path who is the right person, I would certainly consider it. I just don't feel the need to go and shop for someone, and I don't feel the need to go and settle for someone unless there's a spark or unless it's right.
Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense. It really does. So obviously, you sort of answered the question that I was about to ask you, which, how has it changed your life being a single mother? But I mean, obviously, you're more patient. You don't have all that fear and anxiety going on. What other things have changed in your life, or that?
And look, it was completely when you're single. I don't know if everyone experiences this. So I'll say when I was single. So when I was single, all the decisions were made for me, and so I was able to do lots of things because I didn't have. I was able to make those decisions on my own. Becoming a mother, it just changed your perspective, and suddenly it was two of us, and I loved that. I loved having someone else to think about. I actually loved having someone else to make decisions for, and I was a family. But family units come in different shapes and sizes these days. And on my own, I didn't consider myself a family. I was me. And then once I became a mum, that was my family. So my son is my family, and it was just a completely different change in perspective and a real sense of, I guess, belonging, and a sense of, I guess it's love. I suddenly had someone here that I could adore and I could love, and it wasn't just me anymore.
Yeah. What I'm wondering is, sometimes, with only children, and this is when there's two parents, right? But that there can be an awful lot of focus on that just one child, which is you can't help but be that way. That's just because of the way it is. But what I'm curious about is there any do you ever have to kind of pull yourself back and realize this is a son that you have? Is that right?
Oh, yeah, it is a son.
Yeah. So, do you ever? How old is he?
He's 9 now.
Yeah. So now, do you ever feel sort of like there's an overabundance or too much focus on him, and kind of almost maybe almost making him like your significant other?
Oh, yeah. No, and I think that's a very fair question. I have.
I know. I was trying to figure out how to ask that question diplomatically, but
that's okay. You go for it. And look, I think it's a very fair question. I think it's a fair question of any child that's single child. So I have actually had 2 relationships in the last 9 years. So I have actually put myself out there. And I was in a relationship for about 4 years in the last 9 years. And so it wasn't always in those 9 years just me and my son. So I've tried to, I didn't necessarily seek out those relationships, but they landed, and I certainly gave them a go. Unfortunately, they weren't the ones either. But I tried really hard. But I think it's very fair, and I do accept that there's times when I think he is spoilt, and that he is getting a lot of focus. And I guess I reconcile that. I know that there's periods of time in his life where he's going to not want me anyway, so I'm kind of embracing the fact that he's 9 and I might have him till he's 11 or 13. And by that stage, he's probably going to go off with his mates and leave me alone anyway. So I'm just like, I'm taking advantage of the years that I have, knowing that just around the corner, one day he's going to actually say, I'm not going to spend time with you anymore. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Yeah. So, do you feel like there are any disadvantages that you'd like to share, such as the perception that it's a world of couples, which, by the way, I don't subscribe to, as I mentioned earlier, with over 50% of marriages failing. I mean, couples are hardly the majority these days, but yet people do seem to think that, there's still that mindset that it's a couple's world. But Liz is just giving me, Liz shifted. She came back. Liz came back, and she just signaled to me that we need to take a break. So hold on to that question, and when we come back, we'll talk about it. Okay.
This is life, don't listen.
I appreciate you hanging out with me. More talk on the way here on 95.9 WATD.
Are you tired of hating your ex, resenting your mother, beating yourself up because you're disappointed in your life? It's time to have some peace and be happy again. Resentments are bad for your health, and they keep you stuck and unable to create the life you want. Mary Hayes Greco is a life coach who can help you move forward into your best life. You'll swiftly be able to calm your heart, awaken your power and your intuition. Learn more at forgivenesstraining.com and book your first appointment today. You'll be glad you did.
So you finally found your dream home. Now the scary part, the dreaded home inspection. But it doesn't have to be scary. With Dale Weaver, owner of Dreamweaver Inspections, Dale has been inspecting homes since 2002. With extensive experience across all types and phases of construction, Dale provides residential and commercial home inspections. He is thorough, honest, and treats the home inspection as if it was a home he was buying. I know because I used him, and he really goes that extra mile. Dale gave me an unbiased view of my new home so that I had all the facts I needed to make a sound, informed decision. He really took time to explain everything to me in a way that was easy to understand. I would absolutely recommend him. You won't be disappointed. Visit him today at dreamweaverinspections.com. Now a deep breath and relax because you're in great hands.
Tides is beachside dining at its best, all year round. Located at the end of the Nahant Causeway, directly on Nahant Beach, the ocean views from the dining room in the pub can't be beat. Tide specializes in casual dining with food that's delicious, not pretentious. On a warm day, enjoy a frosty pint at their bar or their sun-drenched deck on Nahant Beach. Or enjoy an incredible meal in their dining room anytime. Tides guarantees you great atmosphere with superior service. The menu at Tides is full of fresh, high-quality seafood, prime rib, chicken, pasta, and pizza that everyone will love. Check out the drink menu at Tides for fun cocktails, 30 ice-cold beers on tap, and their well-rounded wine list with state-of-the-art tap wines. Tides is unbeatable anytime, summer or winter, lunch or dinner, rain or shine. Visit tidesnahant.com.
Buying a home can be confusing and overwhelming. I know because I've been there. But I hired Kevin Tan, whose goal is to make purchasing your home simple and easy with proactive communication and accessibility throughout the entire process. From contract to closing, Kevin can help you with every aspect of the real estate transaction. Kevin lives and knows the South Shore real estate market, which makes him the perfect choice. Contact him today at 617-763-8551. That's 617-763-8551 or online at weclosetheloan.com/Kevin-Tan. You'll be so glad that you did. For more Talk with Francesca on 95.9 WATD. All right, we are back. And just listening to my theme song, This Is Life, Don't Miss It. How appropriate, Louisa, huh? Right? So, all right. So, before the break, I had asked you, are there any disadvantages that you would like to share, such as the perception that it's a world of couples, which, although there's far from accurate, there is still that perception. And I think particularly with people who are single, they really are focused on everyone's a couple except for them.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So, but obviously that can't possibly be the case, seeing that there are umpteen million internet dating sites. So I don't think so. But
yes, that's true. There is umpteen million of them. And it's an interesting thing. And I'm for my reality, my friends, I have different groups of friends, and for the ones that I went to school with, which I still keep in contact with, I am one of two single women, and so I just had my birthday just recently at the end of January, and went to the horse races with a group of my friends, and I was basically amongst just over 30 people, of which I was one of two single women, and the rest were married couples. And so I guess it depends on, your circle of friends and what you're exposed to. And so I ended up moving. That was here in Australia. That's down in New South Wales. I ended up moving states and came back up to Queensland because I just felt surrounded by couples. And even my work, where I was working down south, everyone in the office seemed to be coupled up, and I just wasn't coping, I guess, with this feeling like an outcast, and I just wasn't happy. And I moved back up to Queensland, and I've been here previously, and I'm just so much happier up here. And I've got friends up here who are single, and so I'm amongst people that are like me. And so it's finding other single people when you're single, but then at the same time you've got to be careful not to then box yourself off and then only be around single people, because it kind of then shuts you off to, the desire to then go and couple up if you've only got single friends. So it's trying to find that balance. And in regards to feeling like you're the only single person, I don't know if it's because single people don't go out as much because they don't have someone to go out with. So I guess they're not out as much. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that when I was younger, in my 30s or 20s and 30s, when I was single, and you'd go to weddings and you'd get put at a different table. You would actually be treated like a nuisance, if you like. And you'd go to some parties and events, and everyone's sitting there with their partner holding their hand and whispering in each other's ear, and you're just sitting there, and it can be really difficult. And so I guess...
Until they go home and sleep in separate bedrooms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what and we have this perception that they're all happy, and they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, it's society, I mean, it's, the way society, sort of projects this, like what's wrong with you, if you're not with someone. I mean, it can really chip away at someone's self-esteem. And so I really commend you for taking back your destiny and choosing the path to single motherhood that you did,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
But I know that it's not an easy.
But certainly the best.
It also too. I think that it's good advice if you're single to not be afraid to be around married people as well because, hey, after all, they can fix you up with someone. You never know, right? So,
you never know.
And that's but it is true. You see these couples together, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, I used to many years ago. I owned a dating service, and it's not. This is really actually sort of a funny thing. I fixed up this guy and a woman, obviously, and they got married. Yeah. And 2 years later, he wanted his money back from my agency because they got divorced. So, I mean, obviously, relationships are, they're not easy. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times a week I will get, someone asking if they can be on my show because they are a quote unquote relationship expert. I don't, I'm not really interested in that because everyone's got the exact same advice, and it's but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, okay, so I kind of got off a little bit of a tangent, but also. There's a stigma of being single for sure, but what about the toxic relationships? And identity, right? I mean, that's.
Look, I one of the guys or men that I dated. He was separated, but he wasn't divorced, and we were together for almost a year in another country. So we were in Greece, and I had him to myself every day, and we spent every day together. And then he ended up finishing up his contract and moving back to Australia. And it was that point in time that the plan was he was going back to basically get the divorce papers ready and move in with me. So that was the plan. So I'd given up my job in Greece at the time to go home and start what I thought was going to be my happily ever after, and was madly in love with this man, and had spent the best part of, at that point in time, the best part of 6 months every day with him. And proceed to quit my job, head back to Australia, only to find that he had moved back in with the estranged wife and couldn't bring himself to get divorced and be single. Well, what he would consider to be single, even though it was in a relationship with me. He had this stigma where it was like he saw himself as a successful businessman who was married in an elite suburb and wasn't comfortable, I guess, giving up that status. And it's an interesting thing.
Or security, that false security. And and I think that when the people are separated, I don't know. I just, my own personal feeling is that's a dangerous, it's a slippery slope, because and it doesn't surprise me, because when someone is separated and then all of a sudden they meet someone who's paying attention to them, and it becomes this beautiful whirlwind of romance and excitement, and then when the person realizes that you have your faults just like their ex-to-be has their faults, then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, why would I leave what I have, right? And
yes, exactly.
Excuse me. So
and the finances attached to the finances attached to that as well. People have their joint superannuation. I don't know what it's like in the US, but here in Australia we have quite often couples have joint superannuation, and there's a lot of money tied up in that, and so they don't want to break it up. And it's like, yeah, but you're unhappy and your relationship's toxic, so why are you staying? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, money is always there's so many. I mean, the amount of people that are together because of money alone is daunting.
Yeah.
The splitting up of the assets is just, it's very painful for a lot of people. And but I mean, if we really kind of dumb down all the, looked at really all the relationships, if we really had the ability to do that, I think the percentage of people who are, super happy, I don't know that I would say it is 50%, but it's certainly, so if it's 50-50, well, they're right there, even that is not, it's not a great number.
Yeah, no, it's not. And one of the things that when I reconciled that I would go down this path of becoming a single mother by choice, I'd reconciled in my head and thought, well, most couples, 50% of couples of marriages break up anyway. So, if I just wait a little bit longer, then there'll be a whole round of single men that coming through. and that's okay. So I'll just get my happily ever after the wrong way round. That's okay.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, just wait. Just give yourself a couple more years, and then then they start being widowed and divorced. But so it's you have a great attitude, and I think it's fabulous. So let me just ask you a totally different question. So do you think that you would have yet another child alone?
Yeah, look, my biological clock is ending at the moment. So unless it was they brought children into the relationship, which I'd happily do, or if there was adoption, I'd happily do that. But in regards to my fertility, that sadly is declined. So I think I was very lucky that I did go down that path when I did, because we all have different dates at which we have our clocks expire, and I'm in my late 40s now. So that's sadly not sadly, I'm happy, but that's not an option for me now. So
let's talk about those voices in your head, the ones that society puts there. Yeah. So do you ever hear those voices anymore, or have you completely reconciled?
No, I don't think you ever completely reconcile. I think that little voice inside your head is always going to, cause you havoc. And it's just being able to tame the voice inside your head. Mm-hmm. And, there's certain periods of time when, you get your down days. No one ever has all up days. It's not possible. And so you do get your down days, but it's being able to rationalise that voice inside your head. And, that comes with accepting what you've got. And it is comparing it against others, because as you mentioned before about these married couples where they potentially go home and sleep in separate rooms, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and so you can't fall into the trap of thinking that other people have it better than you. And so you've just got to remind yourself that, what, I'm in a better position than a lot of people, and so, okay, I didn't get what society defined as happily ever after. I really think they need to start questioning those fairy tales. What we read to our children.
I am actually, this is a woman that I knew many, many, many years ago. We worked together, and her sister is actually a very prominent psychiatrist in the Boston area, and a brilliant woman. And I actually never did meet her personally, but I know that she is a single mother by choice. And so it's kind of interesting that here's this person who is a psychiatrist, and I think she's actually an addiction specialist. I think that's her specialty is addiction, but nonetheless, so think about it. It's like here's this person who's helping people with issues that have to do with their heads, and so hey, it's
and I agree, and it's a really good point, because I think it's very difficult to send a message to young people, whether it's girls or boys, that you are automatically going to find the one.
That's right.
Because you have this expectation that that's what success is, and you have an expectation that it's going to happen. And so when it doesn't happen, you do feel like a failure. It is a really difficult thing to come to terms with, because that is so ingrained in our conversations in everywhere you turn.
Louisa, we do need to take another short break. So listeners, more to come. Stay with us here.
This is life, don't listen.
I'm Francesca Luca, and you're listening to Talk with Francesca on 95.9 WATD.
Moving into your new home or office is easy when you trust the experienced professionals at ASAP Movers. If you're looking for dedicated movers who will take the stress out of your move, call ASAP Movers today at 857-928-3071. They move everyone in New England, both residential and commercial. ASAP Movers can even provide you with all the packing materials you need. So call now at 857-928-3071. You'll be glad you did.
Tides is beachside dining at its best all year round. Located at the end of the Nahant Causeway, directly on Nahant Beach, The ocean views from the dining room in the pub can't be beat. Tides specializes in casual dining with food that's delicious, not pretentious. On a warm day, enjoy a frosty pint at their bar or their sun-drenched deck on Nahant Beach. Or enjoy an incredible meal in their dining room anytime. Tides guarantees you great atmosphere with superior service. The menu at Tides is full of fresh, high-quality seafood, prime rib, chicken, pasta, and pizza that everyone will love. Check out the drink menu at Tides for fun cocktails, 30 ice-cold beers on tap, and their well-rounded wine list with state-of-the-art tap wines. Tides is unbeatable anytime, summer or winter, lunch or dinner, rain or shine. Visit tidesnahant.com.
Your pets are family. Take your dog to the Dog's Den in Pembroke. Your furry friend will go from smelling crummy to yummy because Leah at the Dog's Den really cares. Whatever your pet's needs are, from dematting to extra scissoring, the Dog's Den in Pembroke has your furry friends covered. So call the Dog's Den today at 781-826-7008 or visit thedogsdengrooming.com.
Looking for an authentic Italian meal in an intimate setting? Then you might just want to venture out to Boston this weekend and dine at Terra Mia Ristorante, a true gem among all those rhinestones in Boston's North End. This cozy trattoria with stucco walls and beam ceiling specializes in creative interpretations of Italian classics. Like the cuisine here, the atmosphere is elegant, yet understated. Since opening in 1993, Terra Mia Ristorante has aimed to convince diners that there's always more to Italian food than just red sauce. Over the years, the innovative and beloved restaurant has done a great deal of convincing. And best of all, it's reasonably priced. The best-kept secret is worth the trip. Call 617-523-3112. That's 617-523-3112. Or visit terramiaristorante.com.
This is life, don't listen.
Hey, this is James Woods, and you are listening to Talk with Francesca.
On 95.9 WATD. And we are back. And I am speaking with Louisa Pateman. She has written a memoir, Single Again, Again, and Again. And we are discussing being a single mom and what that is all about. So welcome back, Louisa.
Thank you.
So, it's funny. We haven't even touched upon this, but, there's sort of that Cinderella complex that an awful lot of women still have. I mean, it just, I don't know that it ever goes away,
No.
right? I really don't think so. And, it almost sounds like, that you weren't really interested in being rescued by a Prince Charming, and that you had certain criteria, and that you weren't going to settle, even as I think sometimes when we don't want to settle, it can be painful. It's like when you have to work hard for something, sometimes it's just really difficult. But, there is really more than one path to happiness. And, I remember years ago talking to a friend, and we were talking about having children. And this is totally different. And, she, who wanted to have children and did go on to have children, said in such an interesting way, it's really, it can be positive either way. It can be positive having children, and it's a lifestyle, and it can be very positive not having children. And, there's, it is a lifestyle choice, and it's unfortunate that, people can be so judgmental. And, I'm not saying that people don't have good intentions by saying, when are you going to get married? When are you going to settle down? All that good stuff, or all that not so good stuff. But there really is, more than one path. And I really don't think that you do need to have a partner to create an amazing life experience. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had to find that out the hard way. And when I was younger, because I was so caught up with this happily ever after and finding my Prince Charming, that I suddenly realised that I was missing out on life experiences, and fortunately I realised that young. And so where I was watching my friends go and have these travel overseas and buy property and do all these things with their partner, and I was watching that and I was getting very upset that it wasn't happening for me, and I just had to bite the bullet, and I had to, it was not easy, but I just had to put myself out there and go, okay, well, I don't have someone to do these things with, but I don't want to miss out on life. And so I started doing them on my own, and it ended up being the most amazing life experiences. And so I'm so happy in hindsight that I did have that courage to get myself off the couch and stop pining for the love of a man and go and live life. But it's not something that I deliberately chose. I didn't say, hey, I'm going to be independent and I'm going to be resilient. It just happened incidentally. And I just managed to accept at those periods in time that if I don't get out there and do this on my own, I could miss out on life. And it ended up being some of the most amazing life experiences that I've had was when I was a single person, by going out and doing them.
Well, and the more independent that you become, in some ways, it's like I said, I had a dating service for quite some time, many years ago. Yeah. And, it was the women who were super independent, very, very powerful, like yourself. Those women were a little bit harder actually to match because their criteria was, up there. And it was also a little intimidating for some men to be with, because men do like to be, this isn't a judgment or, this is biological. You know what I mean? When you really get down to it,
Oh, definitely. And I agree with that. And it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And you either sit there if you're on your own and you're not meeting people, you're meeting anyone or the one, then you kind of need to become independent. So you do learn to become independent, but in doing so, you don't need a man. And so it's this catch-22 situation where you are capable of living on your own. And so then when someone comes along, they think, oh, well, where's my position? Where's my place? You don't need me. But you couldn't just sit there and, let life pass you by. And so it's a difficult one.
Isn't there a book called Men Are Just Desserts? But when you think about it, seriously, I was working with someone years ago, and I swear that was a book that she was reading. And when you think about it, that is the best way to get connected with someone, is to think of them that way, that it's not something that you need, but something that you want. Because when you need someone, when you need someone rather than want them, that's a whole different.
I agree.
It's a can of worms, really. There,
Oh, it's codependency. Yes.
Oh my gosh! I was watching Netflix last night. I was watching the movie I, Tonya, about the ice skater.
Oh yes.
Oh my gosh! And her first husband was so crazy, dependent on her love, and this wasn't love. This was, but that's another whole. That was totally toxic, but that is, it's when you have that, you can take care of yourself and you can make your own good time. I think you bring more to a relationship as well when it's not something that but again, society is just, it makes it so. It can make it very, very difficult for people to be single. So as we're winding down in this last segment, so I just want to make sure that there isn't anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with our listening audience.
Yeah, look, if we've covered a lot, and it's been fantastic. It's been fantastic talking with you.
Oh, you too.
For me, writing the book, as we've mentioned, writing the book, I really just wanted to start conversations and have people start questioning this whole happily ever after notion and the pressure that is put on young girls and women in general. And it does seem to be a female thing, not to say that men, some men don't have this, but it's mostly what I've found in women, and not letting go of it. And so having this belief that is success and that is, the definition of getting it right and you know, I guess the status thing, it's a lot of pressure and it's very difficult to place it on young girls. So it's just understanding that and having the courage to be single. You know, I would much rather now, in hindsight, looking back, I'm so glad that I didn't accept any of those relationships. Mind you, a lot of them were the ones that chose to walk away, but the ones that I did walk away from, I'm glad that I didn't settle, you know. So I look at my life now and I don't have... I'm not in a situation where I have to then find myself, you know, pushing through a toxic relationship. I'm single. I'm happy. I can, you know, live my life with my son for hopefully the next few years whilst he's willing to still hold my hand. But, even when he goes, you know, when he's not, I'm happy to do it on my own, and that's okay. And because I've done it, I know that I can do it again. And so you don't have to accept something that is not working or not fulfilling. And so, yeah, and just, you know, that more than one path to happiness. I certainly... I love my life. You know, I am happy for the experience that I've had, good and bad. And yet I didn't follow that society's norm. I didn't follow that, you know, get married.
Louisa Pateman, author of Single Again, Again, and Again. Thank you so much for being a guest on Talk with Francesca. It's been a pleasure. Sorry I had to cut you off, but I was getting the signal that time was up. Yes, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been lovely. Thanks, Francesca.
Okay. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Wish you